welcome again to our podcast, Knowing Jeshua. Today, we're going to talk about faith
Yeah.
and how we can get some insights from the life of Jeshua, how he went through different experience with where faith was involved, and how we can look at his life experience and how we can apply and take from that some insights that we can use nowadays in our everyday life. So,
And also
welcome.
what faith very much is.
Exactly.
What is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's
dive in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really first want to start on what faith is. Because I think in our society today there is a lot of misconception. And I first want to put this out very clearly, and that is I would never rant on an entire group of people or religion. It's in every culture, in every religion, you're going to find different people that behave in different ways. So what I've seen a lot is in a lot of religions, Western religions, is there is a confusion between devotion and faith. There's a difference between devotion and faith.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Huge
difference.
Huge.
But I think a lot of people confuse the two.
Yeah.
A lot of people confuse the two because if you look at healing circles, where you go into tribal healing circles, where you're going to churches, temples, where they do healing, why are some not healed and some are? And I personally believe it is when the confusion falls between devotion and faith. If you go in with pure devotion to whatever religion you are following, that doesn't mean a healing. That doesn't mean a miracle. Because devotion is when you are completely devoted to a particular set of rules, of laws, of scripture, that you give your time, your money, your everything to it. That is devotion.
Your effort, your discipline, your energy. Yes, I get you. Like showing up as how, are these set up rules and set up.
Yeah, that is devotion. That is devotion. And faith is something very different, because faith is an absolute belief without having actual physical evidence. That's faith. So a lot of people, when they go to these healing sermons or ceremonies or whatever you might call it, if you go with a sense of devotion, nothing's going to happen, because you're not going with the right stance of mind. Do you follow?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is a big difference, and a lot of people confuse the two. And you have to have both. Devotion, that's where it actually starts. You have to have a sense of devotion, because if you don't have devotion in something or someone, you're not going to have faith.
Yeah. So let's just, sorry to interrupt you. I think devotion specifically, it is, just to clarify, it's not just something that there's in religions, and it's something also that you can have your own relationship with the divine, and devote to your own way to connecting to the divine, right? It's not that there has to be like a setup of rules or stuff, but there is some structure. There's intention, there's willingness, there's, showing up. But I just wanted to clarify that, it goes beyond.
Well, what you said, the discipline.
Yeah.
That's a very good word to use, because devotion is actually an act of discipline. So that's a very good way to put it. And if you look at healing through faith, you find it in every single culture and religion around the world.
Yeah.
And each culture and religion uses it to prove that their religion is right.
Right.
Because faith is a universal power that can heal. There was actually not too long ago a National Geographic that on the cover was the healing power of faith, on the cover of National Geographic. And it was a whole article just on what is faith and how does it work. And actually they related a lot actually to placebo effect, which is very much the same thing. You give someone that doesn't know any better a Smartie for their headache and tell them this is going to work. They really believe it, and their headache goes away.
Yeah.
That's faith.
Yeah.
That is faith. That's a scientific name for faith, you could say. So we can go into dive into a whole pool of this.
Absolutely. I think faith is it goes beyond mind, it's like, okay, people can tell you things and experiences that, oh no, this works, and I have experience from my family, and like they heal themselves, this and that. It goes beyond mind. For me, I think faith is a state of being. Is
A knowing.
It's a knowing in the body, in your whole energy, in your whole. You can be in faith. You can be mentally say, I believe, but could be that your body physically and emotionally doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's something really important to be aware of.
And I think that is where the struggle is, because you have devotion. You have devotion, but that doesn't mean you have faith.
That's a muscle. It's a muscle, and it's also very related to your connection with your body, to your nervous system, to your energy, to all of it, because we can't just be in faith with mind. I think that's why there's so much talking about heart coherence, and how the brain and the heart working together, of course the body, the energy, that's what actually manifests, and that's what actually creates in this electromagnetic field and all this resonance, right? That for me, I see as, okay, that's faith. You are embodying faith. It's something that as you continue to show up in that state, that you harness that within yourself, and it's not just, oh, I believe it. No, like you embody it.
No, you see, faith is not a matter of belief, it's knowing.
Yeah.
If you say belief, you're talking about devotion. Because when you know something, you don't have to believe it anymore. That is the question when people ask if I believe in God. No, I don't believe in God, I know God.
Wait, let's just... Exactly. So, that's the difference.
Yes, because a lot of people believe, and again, belief is devotion. Yeah. Belief is devotion. But once you really start to understand and know and grasp something, then it becomes a faith. Yeah. Then it becomes a faith. And I love the word that you used in the beginning, the discipline, for devotion, because that's exactly, and that's where it starts. Honestly, you can't have faith in something if you aren't devoted to it, because that means you'll never understand what it is. What is this power? What is this force? So you have to have a sense of devotion and discipline. So that's at the start.
People think that, oh yes, it's just something about maybe meditating once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, or finding, or not. You don't have to meditate. There's many ways of how to be present in the moment. Many different ways how to become present and bring this spaciousness and this field of awareness, right? But like you say, it requires from us our focused attention, our willingness, our intention, and our showing up, our discipline. Otherwise, we'll just keep distracted in mind, living our lives, and just completely lost, disconnected.
Yeah.
Disconnected.
Well, faith is the other word for miracles. I mean, in faith, that is where miracles occur. And I feel a lot of religions, even spiritual community, have hijacked the word faith. They don't actually use it in the context that it used to be at the time that Jeshua is using it. That his words were, if you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, you could tell a mountain to throw itself into the ocean. And he meant that very, very sincerely, and it's very true. And that is the power that he was talking about. The power that is, in general, talked about today, that is classified as faith, is actually just devotion.
Yeah.
So faith is an extreme power within the universe that, remember last time we were talking about falling into the cycle where everything just flows. And faith is very much that cycle, that flow, that not so much that you flow in it, but you start using it. You started using it to your will. So that is a step further than just allowing the flow. It takes a step further, saying, I allow the flow, but now I can harness this.
I love that, because now you are embodying your co-creator power too, right?
Yeah, if we take, let's take a metaphor of a river. The river it's a wild thing. So if you are not in the flow of nature, when you climb into that river, the rapids take you and you get knocked against the rocks and you go into deep ends, you go through whitewater calm all the time. That is the majority of people. They live life like that. They just let life drag them along and they're fighting it and trying to get out of it. Then you get the people that just go with the flow. And that is when you understand, okay, these are the rapids, lie back, put your feet out and you just let the current take you, just go with the flow. But now you come to a step further where you can say, I want to build another channel. I want to build a little dam here. I want to harness this power right here, right now. And you can do that. You can do it. You have every right to do it. Jeshua said, all these teachers in the past said that we have the right to do it. It's just we've lost context of how to do it because we have hijacked the word. We have misinterpreted the meaning.
And we have forgotten who we are.
Yes. We've forgotten what the river actually is.
Yes. And so I think that is the religion, well, not just religion, but the religion complex have used this in a way for people to forget how powerful we are, right? And what's our divine birthright, and it's in our nature that we can do this, right? I would love to ask you more about how did Jeshua harnessed this faith and this embodiment of knowing throughout his life.
Well,
to get into the point of whenever he wanted, he could change water into wine or otherwise. But yeah, what can you share about that?
You have to realize he became very self-realized. That's a term where other people call it enlightened, which I feel again was very hijacked lately in a lot of groups. But self-realized, I like because you become fully aware of yourself. You realize yourself fully and completely, which goes far beyond most people at some stage. And the thing is, when you become fully self-realized and you understand who you completely are, then of course outer material forces automatically flow with you. There's it's said that when you become fully absorbed in God, God becomes fully absorbed in you. So if you are willing and eager, God joins in. That's just from a different scripture, but it tells you exactly the same thing. When you become fully realized, the forces around you basically become your slave. You command it, you tell it what to do. You are not driven by outer events. You do not react to outer events anymore. You are creating your own events. That is in Vedic, there's the action and reaction. And we are all living in action and reaction all the time. That's why we are always either happy or sad. We're always going through turmoils. When you come to a point that you can only be in action mode, not reacting to what people are saying, what the world is coming to, your own perceptions of what's right and what's wrong. When you're coming to a point of mere action, then you become at peace. And when you become at peace, your mind is steady. And when your mind is steady, then your faith, then you become fully devoted. When you're fully devoted, the faith comes in.
So what you mean with action is like when you become fully sovereign of who you truly are, connected and embodied in that space, right? Like you say, not getting lost in the external, in reaction, but you choosing how to be, how to show up.
Not even choosing, you just are. You just are, because you realize exactly who you are. You don't have to choose to be anything because you are. That is his answer when he said, I am.
I got it.
He was not choosing anything. He just is. That's a very, very powerful statement to make.
Oh, I am. Absolutely.
I am.
Yeah.
Because most people, when we say I am, there's always something that comes after that. I am love. I am my name. I am these clothes that I'm wearing. We're always putting some definition after that. But to just say I am means there's no outer definition anymore.
Embodies all of it. All of it. Yeah, absolutely.
And personally, I don't feel it's right for anyone to actually use that term unless they fully understand its power and its context. Because that, again, it's so many things are being hijacked, which is so sad. When you think of the power it had to have back in the day to today now, I become very skeptical when people talk to me about these things, because the power has been lost somewhere along the way.
Yeah. But I believe that even though there's still a lot of people in the process of awakening and realizing about these truths within themselves, I believe that the words and the statements and the truth of I am, it activates. It activates something.
Yes, it does.
So just saying it, even saying it, I am. I have done meditations, right? Like when you repeat this, you feel it.
There is a power, because that's also affirmations always start with I am, but you have to. Let me put it like this: if you because you hear this all the time, devoted people, they always say, "I have faith in God." But what does that mean?
I know.
But that He's going to provide for you. See, again, what are you doing? You're putting hope on an external source. You can be devoted to God. Well done. That is such a powerful thing, to be fully devoted to what you believe. But faith is something different that goes a bit beyond that. And for faith to really be active, you have to be self-realized. You have to understand exactly who and what you are. Because the beautiful thing of wherever Jeshua went, the people around him actually managed to get that faith from him. You have to remember, he did not heal people. Because even in the Bible it's written, your faith has healed you. That's what he kept saying. People saw him as a catalyst. People saw him as this God figure. And they had faith that he could heal them. So what did they do? They went out, they just touched his robe. Faith healed them. Yeah. That is faith. So if you see a self-realized person, it's contagious. It's
felt, the energies, the frequency, absolutely.
I could actually say it. I've been in the presence of an enlightened person, and that power, it almost numbs you.
I know.
The feeling numbs you.
Me too. I remember, I was like, wow, the presence was so felt in all my body. Like I was like, okay, I was so present for I don't know how long during all this time that I was in the presence of this being, right? And it was a huge reminder.
Yeah,
it was a huge reminder that hey, like,
because I think, if you are in a presence like that, you just need, and this is exactly what happened with Jeshua, you just need one person that really, really had the faith, not the belief, the faith. You can help me. And what did Jeshua say? Your faith has healed you. Get up, go home. And they did. You need one person to do that, and look how that sparks the faith in hundreds, if not thousands, of more people. Yes. And that is why a lot of people who
people effect.
Yes, the people effect. That is why when you go to healing sermons, a lot of people don't get healed. A lot of people, because they go there with a sense of devotion. And here's the other issue that I see in a lot of cultures and religions, in individuals, again, not the religion itself, but in individuals, is when they go for a miracle, whatever, if it's a healing or if they need the money or whatever they're aiming for, they go with a sense of not faith, but you owe me. Because that is another direction that devotion takes. I have devoted my time, I've given you charity, I've done so many things for this God, this deity, this spirit, whatever it is. Now it owes me a healing. Now it owes me this money. And this is very often subconscious. Remember, if you could talk, no one's going to admit that, but subconsciously.
Oh, I can admit it. I in my past, right? In my past, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and honestly, I think it's just a normal thing because we live very conditioned lives. I mean, unconditional love, we should actually talk about that sometime.
Oh, absolutely. But the next topic.
But let's take just a quick example. Unconditional love is something that we cannot understand in a physical state because everything is based on some condition. I mean, we believe or have faith in something because there's always in our brain, what can I get out of this? And that's a true. When we do good charity, there's always something in the back of my mind. What do I get out of this? Even if it's just I'll get into heaven. There's always something behind it. That is why when you come fully realized and you're just yourself, everything that you do is without any thought of what's coming back to you. It's just a pure in the moment state where you do the things that you do. And that is where the power lies. Because we talked about that last time as well. When you're thinking ahead, you're always in the future, and you never live in this moment here and now.
Because you're in a state when you're fully in faith, in a state of wholeness.
Yeah.
Wholeness. There's nothing lacking. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing that I have to do. It just is. You just are. How Jeshua said, I'm just. I am. Right. And I would like to have an example of, for example, when I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter or one of the apostles when he was walking in the...
I was just thinking about that.
I felt it. When he was walking in the waters, can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, the walking on water, it's interesting how Jeshua writes it in the book that I'm putting together now of all the records, that when he writes about turning water to wine or walking on water, he writes very simply. He writes it as if it was such a chilled event. It's like, oh, then I walked on water. It's so chilled. And when I asked to elaborate, he always says, "What's there to say?" Because this is very interesting. What would your reaction be if you walked on water? You would be filled with an ecstasy and an excitement. And then he said, well, if you are going to be filled with ecstasy and excitement, then you didn't have the faith, you're going to do it. You're not going to do it.
Oh, that's so important. And I'm just going to pause on that. Whenever something happens in your life, and then you react with this, oh my goodness, and all of that. What does that show up? The same, right? You didn't have faith.
It was somewhere coincidence or luck or something like that, but the faith
because
was
you wouldn't
lacking.
change. There wouldn't be a change. There wouldn't be a change in your state. Yes, you can celebrate. Yes, you can whatever. But if you were already in a state of knowing,
I can,
it's like then you would just continue being.
I actually can put something out there. When I was a teenager, there was something I was doing that was considered miraculous. There was a time where I achieved something several times. I was practicing it. I don't want to go into details because it's quite personal. And I remember thinking to myself, but how can I be so chilled about this, that I'm doing this? And I actually forced myself to fake excitement because I felt it was wrong that I was just so chilled about the whole thing. And that was a mistake because after that, I actually lost the ability. And it still chews on me, but yeah. So you learn from those experiences. So you can't, you're not, that's why Jeshua says often with things like this, he actually felt he was tricking people. That's often how he felt because it was just so simple. There was just nothing to it. And the whole walking on the water, you have to remember Bartholomew or Nathan, he walked on the water as well. He did get out and he walked on the water, but he had been Jeshua's student for more than 10 years before that already. So for him, it was much easier to grasp the concept. And I think where Peter's downfall is, as it's written, he climbed out, he had the faith, but then he realized, oh my God, what am I doing? This is...
doubt.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't... They say it was doubt, but I wonder more and more if it was that. I think it was the same thing that I experienced. You get out, you do it, and you're like, you feel so calm about it, but that's not right. Look what I'm doing. I shouldn't be calm about it.
According to what? What you've been told that what's possible, according to what we've been taught, according to all the Baals, right?
Exactly. And I think actually that is more what happened. He said, I should be super excited and amazed at this because, actually you were right, because when you become super excited and amazed at a miracle like that, then obviously what does that mean? It means you didn't have the faith. So yes, it was doubt at the end of the day, and that's when he sunk. And Jeshua's words were, why did you doubt for a moment? Why did you look down?
Oh, Jeshua!
Irritated the crap out of his disciples. I can see it.
What helped Jeshua to strengthen this part of how to say it, to go beyond and surpass doubt. Because I mean, just like you and me, he was human. He grew up in whatever environment. Of course, he had a different connection, and he started very young. But still, like, what helped him to overcome doubts?
What I understand, what was explained very beautifully in the new book, was explained very beautifully, is it starts, it's baby steps like everything else, and it comes to a form of devotion that you start to understand something, you start being devoted to it. And once you start being devoted to it, you develop a discipline to it, that it becomes a joy, that discipline becomes a joy, it becomes fun to do it, so you can't wait to do it. There's also in Vedic, it's written that which tastes like poison at first, but then turns to sweet nectar, that is good and what it should be held on to. And Jeshua is such a good example of that. In the beginning, there was so much struggle. I mean, just the 40 days in the desert was such a struggle. But then after that, it became such an addiction in his life, in a good way. And when you can reach to that point, you get to something that is called spiritual ecstasy. And that is a happiness that you feel inside. That is the inner happiness that you have. That if you look at everything on the out, when you reach that inner happiness, everything on the outside looks childish. It's it's like when you are in college. Yeah, when you are in college or high school, and you walk into preschool, and you see the little sums and everything, and that's cute, yes. But you've got no desire to sit there and learn that stuff again. And that is when you get that spiritual ecstasy within, the outside things become very superficial. And if you've ever experienced that, because a lot of people that practice meditation through discipline experience that at some point or another, and I'm sure they can all stand out and agree.
Or vipassanas, right? People that go for meditations for I don't know how long, like hours and hours, for days and days and days, every single day, like really extended hours. And yeah, they have like a little taste.
Little taste. And when you get that little taste, I think in that ecstasy, in that inner joy that you feel, that is, it just runs through your entire being like electricity. I think that is where faith is born and developed.
Wow.
So, you have to be in that state. And if you read the Buddha Dharma, the stories of Buddha, there's also an incident with one of Buddha's students. It's actually written that he came to a point of spiritual ecstasy and stepped out of the boat and started walking on the water. And at one point he began to sink, and he immediately reached into inner ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, and he managed to lift himself up and walk back to shore. That is a story that is written in the Buddha Dharma. So it's very clear Jeshua is running on the same thing. It's you connect to a force, an inner spiritual ecstasy that is so powerful that nothing on the outside can interfere with it. And then you just plant what you want and you do it. It's like fertile ground. I think that's also the parable of the seed that Jeshua was telling was very much in situation with that, because that spiritual ecstasy is the fertile ground where you can plant seeds, and that will sprout into amazing things that other people will consider miracles. For you, it's just, there's no other way of being. Yeah. But to the people who are witnessing it, will obviously be, this is miraculous.
Yeah, I feel there's more people opening a lot, and a lot of the veils are falling into the awareness of the power that we have, and the capability that we have, the potential that we have in regards to all these things. Like I'm just gonna throw a couple of examples, like levitating, right?
Oh yeah.
Having doing things with your third eye, and having astral travel, or even with your body, just many things that I think now these people, more and more I see them opening, and it's not just something like a miracle. Like, no, like
it's just the way life is. And that's especially in Eastern cultures, Buddhism, Hinduism, there's a lot of that happening every day. There's actually groups and retreats where that is happening constantly. Because at the end of the day, it's not, faith is not based on a religion, it's not based on a scripture, it's not based on a culture. It is purely the self. It is purely the self. It's got that is why when Jeshua reached that self-realization, everything he had ever learned and practiced in his life just fell away. It didn't matter anymore, because the things that you learn, that you practice, what you believe, is all external things that don't play a role. When you become self-realized, you realize that they're just external things that put identification on you.
Yeah. It's a different way, I guess, to live life, because even though when you reach into that ecstasy, that point, that I don't even want to say the word reach, because it looks like something that it's in the future, that it's not available to you now, and that's another misconception of putting enlightenment as when I get into enlightenment, and that's sorry. So that is so wrong, because it's available to us now.
Absolutely. And again, it's not a religion, it's not a scripture, it's not a, you can't find it externally. That's what we talked about last time as well. It's not something you can find. It can, religion, scripture, all these things can help get you to the point of understanding who and what God is, and to become devoted to something. But the last part of the road is very much personal, and you've got to do it by yourself, and that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, it's great, but that is the difficult part.
Because each one will find their own way, and each one is very unique, right? Like that. What's the point of creating hundreds, millions of people otherwise? And I guess that's the beauty too. That's the beauty too.
I was just gonna say, but that's also a beauty. If you look at Jeshua, he became that example. A lot of people are completely devoted and dedicated to him and what he taught, but sadly, most people stop there. They don't realize that at some point you've got to go. It's like a child leaving the nest. At some point, when you've gotten what you've got, what you need, then you've got to start taking the long road. And that's what Jeshua also meant.
By yourself.
Yeah. And that's what Jeshua also meant, that a lot of families, because of him, a lot of families are going to break apart and separate. And it's because of that. Because when you come to a point where you realize, I've taken everything I can from this person, from this teaching, you've got to leave and you've got to move on. And that's the hard part.
Self-sacrifice.
Then we come to self-sacrifice. We should have actually done this one first.
Everything is perfect. And I guess another thing too that I would like to touch on is what is the balance? The balance between, because we're in a human experience, in a body, physical, 3D, 4D, those or whatever, all different ones. And we came here, well, I believe, to incarnate, to experience our divinity,
to experience God.
To experience God.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
So I'm like, okay, right? Jeshua got into attuned into that faith, into that knowing, and then he continued living his life.
Yeah.
It was not like, I'm going to forget about everything. I mean, there's people that came here to just meditate for a long time. Frequency holders are called, and that's fine. But not everyone has to meditate or be in secluded.
We were talking about that actually in the Monday group. It's because someone asked, what is the difference? So what I admire when it comes, because I find it considerably easier to go out into the mountains, into the woods or wherever, and just sit and meditate and reach ecstasy and just live off that ecstasy. That's one thing. But to come back to this society, to the chaos, to the arrogance, to the ignorance, to the violence, to the hatred,
to the contrast,
to come back like Jeshua did. And this is actually very interesting. Those that come back to teach, to try and demonstrate, look what you can achieve, look what you can do, those are the ones that religions are built on. Because every single great teacher that experienced something like this, that went back and said, guys, there's something much greater out there, and was trying to teach it, trying to get through to people, religions were built around them.
Yeah.
I mean, they built a whole structure around Jeshua. They even changed his name to Jesus, which is very strange to me still. But The whole point is where the problem began was when we started to worship the person and forgot the teaching. And maybe, is that deliberate, that they want us to worship the person so that we don't realize how powerful we can actually be?
To distort, dilute the content, to dilute the truth
Because
behind the word.
Jeshua not only told us that we can do greater things than he can, he actually commanded people to do greater things than he did. But I don't see that being trained much.
Christ consciousness is rising, sister. I see more and more. I mean, not as I mean, I haven't seen no one like Jeshua. But I do believe that more and more people are tuning into that frequency.
Well, I think a lot of people are starting to think about it and start searching what is actually real out there, because a lot of religions, and I mean the same, the spiritual movement, spiritual community, is that it lacks. There is something that is lacking in there. I was raised Christian. I was in a spiritual community, and I always had the sense there's something lacking. And again, it's not that those roads are wrong, but what happens in those roads is they bind you, they glue you in. They say you've got to do this if you want to get to heaven, if you want to be accepted by God. But at the end of the day, that's why I left all these groups, because and I walked off, and that's why I started going to the desert more and more often, because there was something missing, and I do not believe there is something externally that can give you that missing link. It's something that you've got to figure out on your own time, your own terms. And yes, isolating yourself, going for retreats, fasting, things like that. That is the discipline that we talked about in the beginning. To discipline yourself in order to be devoted to something. Remember, we were talking about self-sacrifice. What are you prepared to self-sacrifice for? You've got to know what you're going for.
Which was something that Jeshua used to do a lot, right? When he know, okay, when I want to connect deeper and attune deeper into this frequency, in this state, he let go of many things. He isolated himself, he fasted, he did all these things.
Constantly, you read that everywhere in the scriptures, that he went out into the desert, that he just wanted to be alone, and he wanted to be, he enjoyed being in the crowd, he enjoyed the teaching, but there were times that he just isolated himself. And that's a giving, and that's something he told me already, that he enjoyed his own company more than anyone and everyone else.
That's a power. That's
a power.
So important.
And that is what a lot of people don't understand. They consider me selfish, or anyone else that claims that I love my own company. I love myself. Not in the sense that I'm standing in front of the mirror thinking I'm so amazing and above everyone else. I love my own company. I love being on my own. I love being able to think through things. I like that stillness.
Space. Oh, yes.
And today, that's what we talked about last week. A lot of people can't do that. They don't want to be distracted. The first thing they'll do is pull out their phone instead of looking.
They can. They're not willing. That's it.
That's where we come to the devotion.
Yes.
Then we come to the devotion, which is the self-sacrifice, which is the discipline, which is what leads to ecstasy, what leads to faith.
Yeah.
And that's what miracles are. And you can't skip through this. A lot of people want the shortcut. We talked about that as well. Mind-altering substances and whatever else. They want the shortcut. It doesn't work like that.
No.
It doesn't work like that.
Oh, just a weekend of Vipassana and, of just meditating the whole 3 days full on. No. It's like, it's something, it long-term, to be steady, it's something that you have to cultivate.
Enlightenment or self-realization does not come with a bang. It is a tree that's growing, makes its flowers, makes its fruit, and the fruit drop from the tree. That is the process of self-realization. It's not that the fruit is suddenly in the tree. Yeah. It doesn't. That's not it. That's not how it works. It is a gradual process. And honestly, when you reach the state of self-realization, you probably won't even notice.
Yeah. So you're gonna be so in and out. Because there's no even desire for an outcome.
No, there's not, because you're not looking at the future. You are just within, you're at peace, you are, I am, and you're in the state of ecstasy and inner blissful joy that isn't compose of outer things.
And now to what I admire a lot from, well, many things I admire from Jeshua, but you know, his admirable way of integrating and grounding this in his daily life.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, not just doing this balancing of like, oh, now you return and now you apply that and you be that and you live in coherence with that. That's for me is like yeah, that's a mastery. It's a mastery.
It is. He still had his little breakdowns. I mean,
we're human, right?
We're a human being.
But
I think again that is also what makes him so beautiful. Is because if he was perfectly divine, like a lot of people want to sell him, it's fake and unrealistic, and you can't relate to that. But when you see the little things of, you know, the little incident in the temple, you know, little tantrum,
just a little, the tables around,
knocked a few people, you know. It just comes to say you're still a human being at the end of the day. But even through that, you can still attain a peace. Yeah. You know, sometimes yes, the mind just happens to get through, and you are looking for outcomes, and it's constantly flickering. Yeah,
it's a dance.
It's a dance. It's a tango.
It's a tango. It's a dance in between. I love this. This.
That was, you know, I actually, these podcasts are sometimes too short, I think, because when we come to the limit, the end, then that's when we really, that's when we warmed up, and now we're ready to go, because now we can talk.
Maybe we do a part 2. Who knows, right?
Yeah, maybe we should actually discuss it more.
Yeah. I think that today we covered
I think we covered pretty much what we had to.
Meant. Yes. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for being here with us, for dedicating this space. Soon we're going to bring different people that we're going to invite to our podcast and to talk about all of these topics too. So have an eye on that. Thank you.
Great. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.